All right, welcome to the new JFK Show number 144. Hope you all enjoyed DC Dave last week. We got a lot of good responses over that. So tonight, I want everyone to know that I've launched a new book site where you can purchase books. It's called Patriot Radio Books, and it's going to be very, very limited to the books we're going to sell, and you got to pass muster. And we happen to have 6 of them right here. So if you're looking for the JFK book, you're going to have to leave your email when you go to the site. So go to patriotradiobooks.com, and we're going to carry all of these books here.
Gary, lest anyone think you can't count, there are 7 books shown.
Oh, okay. Well, there's 6 of them you can order, and 1 of them's not out yet. That's what I was trying to say.
Okay.
So the JFK book is not out, but it will be soon. So, all
this
right.
Month, this month.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
What happened? That really got distorted.
1 second here. I got to hit.
I thought you were going to start with everyone else.
Here it is. Boom. Oh, okay. You want me to start with the other one?
Yeah. I thought you'd do me last.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I hit the wrong button. They're actually similarly named. All right, here we go. All right.
All right. Looky what we got here. Tell us about it.
All right. Larry, I counted over 70 books. So if you want to actually challenge Larry Rivera, you've got a lot of reading to do. And I saw only 1 book that I was concerned with. We got Family of Secrets here. Got a little shield there. But so, all right. Now what we decided to do was have the top 10 books of each of our show members. And what I've done, I've put 10 of them in this PowerPoint. 10 of them was picked out by Larry, 6 of them by myself. And then Dr. Fetzer has his PowerPoint. And then Don Fox was only able to come up with 1 book that didn't cross over, that we hadn't mentioned already. And it was this one right here.
I would have liked to have seen Don's list. I didn't care if they crossed over. That's part of the benefit of doing this.
Okay. Well, I think I have it on a piece of paper. I'll grab it.
I emailed it to you, Gary.
Oh, okay. We'll get it. All right, so Larry, you want to talk to us?
Well, I think you went overboard here, Gary. You know, there's a lot of good stuff. I'm a little partial to that image there, but everything else that's not there I have on PDF, which is the advantage of the computer age.
So you've got Phil Nelson's books. You've got both the Prouty books.
Murder in Dealey Plaza, Science. The Last Investigation.
Oh yeah, that's one
of the classics. You know, I've got Best Evidence there. Douglas Horn. You know, all 5 volumes are there. Okay, and even George O'Toole, is there. So a pretty good mix there. What do you think, Jim?
Yeah, I think George O'Toole's book, The Assassination Tapes, is excellent, Gary. Larry, that would have been a good one on your list.
All right, y'all ready to go to the first book? Here we go.
Whoa.
Yeah. JFK and the Unspeakable. And Larry said to me when we decided to do this that they're not in any particular order. These are not higher or lower than the others. These are just our recommended books. And so, all right, so everyone knows about JFK and the Unspeakable. To me, it was Phil Nelson's book with actually, I think Phil Nelson got a little deeper into everything. So, Jim, you want to talk about this one?
Well, I think what's important about James Douglas's book is that it's affected a lot of people. In other words, it's made a very large audience interested in and concerned about his mode of death. I think that it was a very successful book in that respect.
It is true. A lot of people have read this book, and it's one of the most commonly recommended books. Don?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite books. I bought this, I think now I remember, it was in 2008. Maybe one of the last actual hardcover books I've read. Larry referred to PDFs, and I kind of prefer PDFs, for research purposes. It's easy to have a PDF up on one monitor and then you can do your writing on the other monitor.
And you can search, and you can search.
Yeah, Control F is there. Yeah, that's nice. Thumbing through pages anymore seems so arcane, but sometimes it's nice to sit down with a real book. And
I know.
like I held it up before. This book is also in my collection.
James Douglas has a religious background. Am I right, Jim, on that? He's
yes.
Right. So this is the first time that somebody, with that kind of background wrote a book on the JFK assassination. Okay, and he did it in a very sober and concise way. The way he presents the information, he just presents facts. Okay, and he lets the reader decide as to the facts being presented. So this is a very, very important book, and it's got a lot of new information. For example, the Vincent case, that guy that was on that airplane that landed on the basin, I think, of the river there, the Trinity River or something like that there in Dallas, and then a second Oswald lookalike boarded the plane, and it landed in Roswell, New Mexico, at a super secret base there. That is something that I had never heard of, until I read this book.
Yeah, with the general on board, if I remember right, on board the plane.
I'm sorry, Jim?
I remember there being some sort of military general on the plane along with Oswald.
No, this was just the airplane had the markings of what Vincent later on recalled as being CIA markings. A globe, with the lines across, going down vertically, and that is what in his mind identified the plane as being CIA related. So I think that's one of the most important revelations. But the entire book is, very, very, very good. Oh, one of my favorites.
Yeah, go ahead, Larry.
Oh, Gary Shaw and Larry Ray Harris. This was 1976. This was at the time he had to self-publish this, by the way. Okay, and and I remember being in contact with Gary, back in the very early 90s, probably 90, 91, and he was selling these books. And
still with us, Larry?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Uh-oh.
Keep going, Larry.
No.
That he had them numbered, serialized. So each copy was, a very special copy, that he even signed and provided, And at the time, it was groundbreaking because nobody had ever dared to publish something like this, and being in the Dallas area and knowing a lot of the inner workings of Dallas, he was able to track down a lot of leads, especially with Larry Ray, who later on died in a one-man car accident in 1996. Larry Ray Harris, whom I met at ASK in 1993. But this is a very, very, very important book. A lot of the information in this book is still valid today. Okay, so
I agree. This was an important resource for me when I began serious research into the assassination. For its time, I think it was truly exceptional.
That's right, and he had to self-publish, Jim. Also.
Right.
Yeah, Larry Ray Harris went on to. He was in The Men Who Killed Kennedy.
Right.
Right. I saw him.
He was a specialist. Yeah, and the Tippett. Yeah.
Yeah. This book was a bit before my time.
Yeah, I'm very much admire Gary Shaw. So how many of these men on the cover do you think knew about the assassination before it occurred? I can tell Johnson. Dulles?
That's a great point there, man.
Dulles and Johnson for sure, and of course McCoy, who was at the ratification meeting that night before at the home of Clint Murchison Sr. So,
Hoover?
Yeah, Hoover knew, yeah.
Oh, yeah, Hoover. I thought you were only looking at the members of the commission. Obviously, Hoover, Johnson, Dulles, McCloy, those four in particular.
Yeah, I don't think Hale Boggs, he was from Louisiana. I don't think
he didn't know. No.
Dick Russell.
And Russell, and I want to talk a little bit about Russell. He was from, I believe, Georgia, and he had a very special relationship with Harold Weisberg. And he told Weisberg what he believed, that it had been a conspiracy. And he urged Weisberg to continue and following the lead inside government information and documents and stuff like that. So and I've seen the documents, and it's very compelling. Russell was very, very convinced that it had been a conspiracy.
I have noticed he used the shape of a pentagon here to lay it out. That's nice. Representing the military-industrial complex, of course.
Of course,
Yeah,
of course.
no doubt about that. Wow. Uh-oh.
Whoa.
Yeah, I picked these. So did Don. So did Larry.
How did this get in here?
Well, yeah, we're never ones to not toot our own horn, so I guess
now, I have to have these books on Patriot Radio Books as well. So I have to. The Great Zapruder Film Hoax, got to have that. Murder in Dealey Plaza. So
there's an awful lot to be learned in the Great Zapruder Film Hoax just from the preface and the prologue, because not only do I lay out key indications of the fabrication of the film, but multiple examples where they altered x-rays, photographs, and so forth to make the whole thing hang together. So I don't know. I've never run across anyone who extolled those virtues of the book. In fact, most of the JFK research community has tried to shy away from it. I mean, just as Josiah Thompson described assassination science as assassinated science, I mean, there's been a major effort to suppress the utilization of scientific methods in doing research on the death of JFK.
So what happened at the 6th floor museum when you talked to him about getting your books in, Jim?
Well, I never was physically there talking to him, but they told me, I got a message from Gary Mack explained to me that my books did not meet their scholarly standards.
Well, that's not all bad. And I'm sure he was right. I'm sure he wasn't lying about that, because your books actually attempted to explain what happened.
Yeah, their standards had a very rigorous framework that included suppression of evidence of conspiracy.
Yes.
I couldn't accommodate that at last.
Yeah.
This book contains, a lot of very important essays, by people, that are like the cream of the JFK assassination research.
Some of them have turned over time, though, I believe.
Yeah. For example, Doug Weldon, his work on the windshield alone is worth the price of the book, And of course,
talking about murder. And David has 3 completely brilliant synthetic essays there about the medical evidence, about
right. I was going to say,
about the film, and about the silence of the historians. I mean, those are classics that will endure forever.
That's right. And I believe that this book is also used at the university level, Jim, for classes, for classroom study and everything, So it's important that this book continue to be in the limelight, because the experts like Gary Aguilar, and on, and David Mantic, and it's like Jim, he puts together all the experts and he lets them do their thing, and that's what Dealey Plaza is all about.
Sure, that was the whole methodology, bringing experts in areas where I was not myself and benefit from their expertise. David Mantic, MD, PhD, Bob Livingston, World Authority on the Human Brain, expert on wound ballistics, Charles Crenshaw, who'd been in trauma room #1 when JFK's moribund body was brought in, and then 2 days later was responsible for the care and treatment of his alleged assassin. Jack White, legendary photo and film analyst. John Costello, another PhD, this time in electromagnetism, the properties of light and of images of moving objects, who did such brilliant work exposing the technical flaws in the Zapruder film.
Douglas Horn.
Yeah, Doug Horn was in the midst of his early work.
Right, with the ARB, yeah.
That's right. And as you mentioned, Weldon, Vince Palomara has 2 essays about the witnesses to the limo dramatically slowing or coming to a complete halt, where it had to slow dramatically as it came to a complete halt.
Oh, we know it came to a complete halt now that we have the Newcomb tapes.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like an all-star NBA basketball game, except it was JFK researchers of the time. But
Hey, Gary, look what I have here.
what you got? I can't see you guys.
What does this look like?
He's showing you, Larry's showing you his hourglass.
Yeah, he's
Oh,
got.
you got one? Okay.
Yep.
Let me go back.
Okay. Well, yeah, we're.
What happened, Gary?
Yeah, I can't see you guys.
Okay. That's right, because you got the screen. Okay, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I'm
Next.
screen share.
Yeah,
So
go ahead.
anyway, Dr. Fesser, didn't Aguilar kind of shy away from these books or something? Can you?
No. You're talking about Josiah Thompson seeking to trash him. And, I think he recognized they were enormously threatening because the assassination science shattered the cover-up, exposed that the autopsy x-rays had been altered, that the fist-sized blowout to the back of the head had been patched, that they'd added a 6.5 millimeter metallic slice to another x-ray, that they had used someone else's brain for the diagrams and photographs, not JFK's brain. He knew this was explosive stuff, so he did everything he could to suppress it. He even arranged with a reporter for the Chicago Tribune, with whom I spent a lot of time, at least 5 hours, explaining what we discovered, who wrote a hit piece review. He warned me before in advance that I was going to be surprised because, of course, this was an inside job by CIA assets.
Yeah.
Next.
Yeah, pretty much if they won't have it in the Sixth Floor Museum, we'll have it at Patriot Radio Books.
Well, yeah, and I was going to say, Jim, now, and then with 9/11, then you assembled a bunch of people and you covered up the truth of directed free energy technology use.
That's what they allege, in other words. Well,
all right.
It is astonishing how the spinmeisters work overtime. And with the two other groups, architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth and Judy Wood and Do, won't even talk about who was responsible and why. I mean, if that doesn't reveal their limited hangouts all by itself, I can't imagine what would.
Well, yeah, and like just to kick a dog when she's down. I mean, Judy always says, well, you can't get after who done it until you figure out, how it was done. And then she comes out and says, well, she doesn't have a theory. She's got this overwhelming evidence of how it was done. So, okay, well, if you solve the how, then where's the who?
And
well, that's one of the most bizarre aspects of her position, that she denies she has a theory, when on the cover of her book it says, evidence of the use of directed free energy technology on 9/11. Now, that sounds like a theory to me.
Sounds like a theory. So as far as these books, I hope by now our audience can rest assured that there are so many disinformation books. It could be 99 to 1. And the reason we're showing you these books, because we can save you a lot of trouble and a lot of going down the wrong road. So that's why we're doing this. These are books.
They can always go and test the proposition that there are better books that aren't on our list and see what they come up with. I mean, it's we're not dictating anything to anyone. We're simply offering the benefit of our years of research in the field to suggest what we believe are some of the most promising, positive works, contributions that have advanced the understanding of the death of JFK.
Right. Well, we stepped in the mess before as well, so we're trying to keep it from stepping in the dog mess as much as we can. So that's the way I look at it. All right, so Crossfire seemed to be a big book for a lot of people. I've never read it, but I've sure heard about it 1,000 times.
Well, it's interesting. It doesn't have a single photograph, and it's not devoted to science. It doesn't deal with the medical or the ballistic evidence. It's really based upon public sources that Jim Marrs was clever enough to put together as a basis for what would turn out to be one of the two sources for Oliver Stone's magisterial JFK.
That's right. And the other one being On the Trail of the Assassins by Jim Garrison.
Well, yep,
right.
My edition from '95 does have a few pictures in it.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I bought this book back.
Yeah,
I think it was
mine has pictures. Mine has pictures.
Yeah, I was going to say this. I bought it in either late '94 or early '95. And I had a delivery job. So, like, if I got stuck at a place for a minute, I would or I was eating lunch, I would read the book, while I was.
Well, that was a lapse in my memory, but I must say my wife, her two favorite books on JFK are these two, On the Trail of the Assassins by Jim Garrison and Crossfire by Jim Mars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are like two of the first books I read, and then the third one was, we'll get to that one in a minute here, I suppose.
Yeah, something tells me that that book's going to come up
yeah.
eventually. All right, so anything else on Crossfire?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, when I had no idea what was going on until I walked in the movie theater and I saw that the Stone movie JFK back in I saw it in February of '92, and I remember walking out of the theater and the snow was it was kind of a sunny day and some of the snow was melting. It was dripping up here in Minneapolis off the roof, and I walked outside and like the sun hit me in the face and I'm like, wow, I can see what have I been missing all these years? It was just, my jaw was just on the ground. I couldn't believe that all of that had taken place. I had just assumed that Oswald shot the president. That's all you ever heard when you were a kid. I was 20-something years old when that movie came out. And
this is why the agency drew on all of its assets to attack the film even before it had been produced. They were attacking it. Oliver and his screenwriter Zachary Clark put together a book called JFK, the book about the film, including 100 reviews of the book as well as a screenplay itself. And the annotated screenplay is excellent. It makes a lot of points that are not well understood by students even today.
Yeah, and so I had to go. I was immediately possessed to run to the library and get Crossfire. They may not have had it at Burns. I had to go over to the store and buy it, and I had no problem. I think I paid $19 for it back then. Worth every penny. Jim Mars does an outstanding job on that book.
Well, I'm going to have to read it. That's one of them that got away from me.
Well, Don, Jim Mars is a Dallasite, was there from the beginning, and he's told us how, from the very beginning, I think he was, 18 or 19 years old at the time of the assassination. Yep. And he collected everything, every last piece of newspaper.
Well, he was a local reporter.
That's right. That's right. And then he worked as a local reporter, and he knew the intricacies there in Dallas, and he knew all the people. He knew all the inside information that was going around, in Dallas at the time, and during everything after the assassination until today. He even taught a course at I believe University of Texas. And on the JFK assassination, where this course was sometimes being infiltrated by people who were really interested.
Yeah, it was one of the branch campuses. I don't know if it was El Paso, Arlington, not the main campus in Austin.
Yeah, and even that happened. In Jim Mars, trying to bring out and educate the people on the assassination in Texas.
All right, so Larry, you were telling me that Penn Jones wrote great books, but he had some mistakes. So what were the mistakes?
Yeah, no. Well, the thing about Penn is when he would go off the completely overboard on some information without really confirming. So some of the stuff, and I'm not, don't take me wrong. This is a very primary source of information on the JFK assassination, volumes 1, 2, and 3. And they're available online actually. But another insider in Dallas who from the very beginning, in fact, he was at Parkland Hospital at the time of the assassination with a camera, and he took a picture which seems to show Jack Ruby from behind. Okay, and a lot of stuff, and that he just writes in his books, on everything that was going on in Dallas in different situations and different witnesses, and how everything was being suborned, and contaminated, and, a very, very important inside information in all the series of his books there.
How information was being managed or controlled.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And all the, for example, they burned down. He had a very small publication called the Midlothian Mirror. Okay, and at one point they burned his facilities down. literally, they firebombed this place. So and a lot of witnesses were contacting him. For example, he had a very special relationship with Roger Craig. Okay, and of course, we know that Roger Craig was a detective who had been cited, in Dallas just the year prior to the assassination, and where Sheriff Decker had told him, not to participate in any of the security of the parade. But so Penn Jones had a very special relationship with Roger Craig, and we all know how Roger Craig ended. How tragic his story is, and because he wanted to tell the truth. For example, Roger Craig saw Lee Oswald in Captain Fritz's office that week and that night, and everybody denied it.
He saw it was a Mauser.
Yeah, that too, and everybody denied
the first weapon that was identified. Yeah,
that's right. And everybody denied that Roger Craig had been in Fritz's office while he was getting Lee Oswald until a photograph, surfaced. Where it shows him right there. Okay.
What about Ruth Payne's getting into Ruth Payne's station wagon? He said that occurred. What do you think about that?
Well, like I said, Penn was in on a lot of inside information on what's going on in Dallas. A lot of witnesses were coming to talk to him and open up to him and tell him, look, this is what happened and this is not part of the official story, So that's why Penn is very, very extremely important in this whole series that we're talking about here today.
I still find it difficult to accept the idea that Roger Craig committed suicide. That's such a typical mode of assassination.
That's right.
They tried to kill him many times.
That's right. That's right.
We tried to shoot him just because he stepped down on the curb. The bullet went right over his head.
And now the car
blew up with him in it.
They tried to run him off the road a couple of times. It's incredible, man.
Yeah, I know. They were working on taking Craig out many, many times. He's lucky he wasn't shot right in the street of Dallas, just like JFK.
Yeah.
Or in his own office by an officer cleaning his gun.
Yeah.
We talked about this one, but wow.
This is the one.
Yeah.
To me.
That's a good place to start. Yeah, it's a fairly quick read, actually. But it is pretty hard hitting. It does jar you. Very good book.
I'll never forgive Johnny Carson for trying to belittle Jim Garrison.
Yeah, me either. Anytime I see a Carson highlight now,
I mean, their comparative size is indicative of their comparison quality as human beings. Jim Garrison towered over Johnny Carson, who turned out to be a miserable little shit.
Yep.
He got it handed to him. Jim Garrison unloaded on Johnny Carson. John Carson was no match whatsoever. And
I like the scene in the movie JFK, when Kevin Costner, is showing the picture, oh, wait a minute, you can zoom in here, you can see this, about the tramps, it's a great scene in the movie there.
Yeah, these are the two books, Crossfire and On the Trail of the Assassin, the movie was based upon. And this is actually Jim Garrison's, actually through the years, going through it from the perspective of the DA of New Orleans. So,
of course.
This is a great book. And I'm proud to say that I know Jasper Garrison and Liz Garrison personally. And it almost gives me goosebumps to know that I'm that close to history that way. It really does.
What do you think Jim would have said about the man in the doorway and how we confirmed that he was right all along?
He said that first. I sent that to Ralph Sinkay. There's Jim Garrison say Lee Harvey Oswald was standing in the doorway watching the parade.
That's right.
Video of that. I've seen it 100 times.
Jim,
he's just my hero.
He got so much of it right.
Yeah.
And I mean, no man has ever been as, pilloried and just attacked for getting as much right as he did.
Don, do you think the Permindex angle with Garrison might have had something to do with it?
I think it might have. That might have been part of it. Yeah.
Because that Permindex thing, that was very powerful people.
It's a miracle he himself wasn't taken out because he was a pretty big target.
No, they were going to kill him until the story broke and they had 10,000 reporters on Broad Street. they were going to kill him. Actually, David Ferry was discussing it with an assassin to have him taken out, but he refused to do it.
Hey Jim, but I think Mr. X, played by Donald Sutherland, says it very well when he says they haven't taken you out because you got a lot of light on you. Okay, so that's
you got to stay in the public eye.
Colonel X.
Make arrests.
And
stir the shit storm.
Yeah.
And what Garrison said is that he had a perfect relationship with the FBI, perfect working relationship with the New Orleans Police Department, and everyone else. And all of a sudden, all the doors were slammed in his face, and they didn't want to talk to him.
Well, the first time in history, a sitting governor, Ronald Reagan, refused an extradition request from the district attorney of New Orleans.
Well, also Ohio, also wherever.
I mean, this is unheard of. I'll bet it hasn't happened since, but it did happen to Jim Garrison in relation to his investigation of Clay Shaw.
Absolutely.
No doubt.
And history has vindicated him, Jim.
Yeah, absolutely.
And continues to do so. Now, this book I have not read, so I know about it. It's a fiction book that's loaded with truth, more or less. I'm sure there's a name for it.
Well, you know,
historical fiction. It's called historical fiction.
Right. And let me tell you, it's extremely hard to obtain. You know, if you go on eBay, people are selling this for like $200, $300. You know, believe it or not. You know, and it's very rare, very hard to find, and I've never seen it, never laid eyes on it. But it's like you were saying, it's a historical fiction. But it really talks about how Jim thought the whole thing, you know, really happened, you know, with giving him poetic license, obviously. So it's an important it's an important book.
Yeah, it just had different names, but you knew who everyone was.
That's right.
I think I may have read this book now that I think about it.
Go ahead. Oh.
Wow. Now that's an early book here.
Right, where Sylvia Marr demonstrated that the supporting volumes, the 26 supporting volumes, provided evidence and documents and testimony that contradicted the findings in the 888-page summary of the case, colloquially known as the Warren Report.
Yeah, did she spend years indexing the Warren Report?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not indexed, yeah.
Right.
Man, what a job.
Not only did she index the report, she disseminated this index throughout the assassination research community at the time.
Yeah, you probably had to send in a self-addressed stamped envelope to get it too, I bet.
Well, no, I don't think so, because the network, you know, of the early researchers, the first generation researchers, they were very well connected. Okay. Now, one thing about accessories after the fact is that she doesn't give you any opinions or anything. She just tells you, you know, what the Warren Commission, the 26 volumes, you know, of all the exhibits and everything, how they contradict each other, and how it is so disorganized that it just wasn't believable. So, but very, very important book here. Very early, I believe it was printed in 1966, 67 or something like that.
Yeah.
But, it needs to be in every, anybody who is interested in the case. This is one of the books that you start out with.
Yeah.
The one I started with was the Warren Report. This is the summary book.
Yeah, I read that in high school in the paperback version. Yeah.
My dad got this. My dad bought this when it came out.
Yeah, and you know who wrote that, right? We did a show.
Yep.
We did a show on the authors of that. Goldberg and Redlick.
Goldberg.
And Redlick.
Yep.
Yeah, I read this whole thing 20 years ago. I read the whole thing.
And you know, and John, look in there and tell me if you can see any of the names of who actually wrote that, because I looked for them in that version of that, and it's nowhere to be found. Look and see if it says the name of anybody who might have been the authors of that.
Well, okay, Cam, the so-called title page here. It says, reported the Warren Commission on the assassination of President Kennedy.
You'll find it.
Yeah, introduction by Harrison E. Salisbury with additional material prepared by the New York Times exclusively for this edition. But yeah, who's the...
It will not.
You have to be a high-ranking military historian to know.
Right.
Yeah, a prologue, Death in Dallas by Tom Wicker. So the prologue is credited.
You find it. You're not going to find it. It's not there. It's not there.
You know about Tom Wicker? He's one of the reporters that went to the top back in the Commission, no doubt. All right. So this book is one that I brought to the table. This book has 1,400 suspects, victims, witnesses, law enforcement, everyone. And believe it or not, I read this book maybe 5 or 6 times. And it goes in alphabetical order. And everyone who has anything to do with it, you can cross-reference them. They all have the cross-reference where you can go and check something else out. And it's...
And look how it has right on the cover a fake photograph.
That's right. Ultra 7.
Yeah, but they still have a lot of good information. I don't...
Yeah, I'm just saying it's an irony.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is like a good book.
It sounds like you got a conspiracy smorgasbord there with 1,400 suspects, victims, witnesses. I mean,
yeah. I mean, I gained a lot from this book. You can actually figure things out by having it. So that's one of mine that I brought to the table. This was Don. Don told us to put this one in.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, this is more than just a JFK book in my estimation. This is
what
kind of one of
those, to the world.
Yeah, this is how you view the world. Yeah, this is the kind of book that changes your world view. This isn't just, this shot came from this window or that storm drain or this picket fence.
And there you got Meyer Lansky, David Ben-Gurion, and James Jesus Angleton above the red banner, and then Bobby Jack and their father on below it.
And a mushroom cloud in the background.
Yes, I like that. And the flag at half mast.
Well, as we've talked about before, Israel was designed as a nuclear terrorist state from the beginning. Before it was, officially a state, it was designed to be a nuclear terrorist state. So this cover is devastatingly accurate. It looks a little hodgepodge, but the more you look at it and the more you research this stuff, the more all that stuff belongs there.
Yeah, the flag at half mast. Yep. And the little candle holder there at the bottom. I could be ringing this one the whole time.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, this book really was a jaw dropper. And another point I wanted to add is that Piper didn't write all of it. In fact, the impetus for him to start writing it all was he got a large envelope in the mail one day, basically a manuscript, kind of a
data dump from Jim Mars.
Yeah, that's where it came from. Yeah, Piper suspects strongly that it was Jim Mars that sent him the data dump. So when you say Final Judgment, Michael Collins Piper, you may want to put Jim Mars into the mix there as well.
Yeah, don't forget that Mr. Kennedy down at the bottom was telling Mr. Ben-Gurion that you're not getting any nuclear weapons. Sit down and shut up. We're involved with a peace race, not an arms race. And in my opinion...
And let's talk about Dimona.
Dimona, right. We're going to have inspections every 6 months to make sure that your nuclear aspirations are peaceful ones.
And
just like they tell Iran.
And they had a fake wall, so they didn't realize that you were only visiting part of the facility and all the secret work was going on in inaccessible regions of it.
Yeah, they had a phony elevator bank. Yeah, they cemented the one shut, and then the other would take you to a phony control room.
Yeah, now this does not get brought up in JFK much at all. This is one of the few places where we'll even talk about it.
Well, Gary, when you don't forget what happened when you tried to talk about this at Judy's conference in 2014 in Arlington.
A riot going on.
Yeah, over on the Thursday night guys don't talk about this too much.
Yeah. Not hardly anyone at all. So, all right. Here's another one of mine. Now, I understand that Robert Groden has to be one of the biggest shills and has guarded many, many secrets very closely. But when it comes to trying to figure out Lee Harvey Oswald, I believe this is a informative book, even though it was highly disappointing to realize that he wasn't all that I thought he was.
There's a lot of very good material here, including what I regard as the best discussion of the shooting of J.D. Tippit and the physical evidence related thereto.
And this book contains that famous blow-up of the entrance of the doorway, which we have used to conclusively prove that it's Lee Oswald in the doorway.
And notice how he uses the mugshot where they deliberately had him take off his overshirt so the similarity to the man in the doorway would not be immediately noticed.
And you know, this photograph, Jim, I have the original of this, and this is distorted. It looks distorted. If you look at the original of this, you can see where they have applied, remember the old mercurochrome orange that they used to put on scars and
right, on, cuts.
Agents? Yeah. This part of his forehead, his right forehead, is covered in mercurochrome, okay? And you can clearly identify it, you know, from the beating that he took at the Texas Theater and God knows wherever else. You know, it sort of took me, I was taken aback, you know, by the poor quality of
and I'm sure Groden, of all people, doesn't mention how they had him remove his shirt to show him only in his T-shirt for the sake of this mugshot.
Yeah.
Because Groden, of course, historically played such a crucial role in concealing the fact that the man in the doorway was none other than Lee Harvey Oswald.
And don't forget that we've been talking about this for weeks here about the Aurora, the Denver, Colorado trip, okay, with Kenneth Bruton.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Groden is still one of the main people that vouches for the authenticity of the Zapruder film.
And Lovelady as doorman.
Yeah, that's the main source of topic at all conventions. I've been to too many of them where I've just been to too many of them. So, all right. Here's another one of mine. I have Me and Lee, which if you want to understand Lee Oswald, which I've always been infatuated with Lee. I mean, I always thought he was very interesting in understanding what happened. You had to understand Lee Oswald. And between this book and hopefully I have the right one. No, sorry.
Well, he certainly found a fetching photograph of Judith to use here on the cover.
Yeah, I always wondered about that particular picture right there.
Which we have decided not to use for the Spanish version, by the way.
Really?
Yeah,
I
because
thought it would have given a little Latino flair, a little spice.
No. People would tend to be a little bit more conservative, you know. So the picture that I have recommended is the one where she's in the lab, you know, with the mice and whatever.
Right.
In a white coat.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, she looks like she's on Bourbon Street right now.
Yeah.
So, as far as Judith Vary Baker, I feel she's 100% credible. And I've read all of her books, and she actually contacted me to carry these books. So, anything else with Me and Lee?
No, it's a book that humanizes Lee Oswald, makes it clear that he's not a nut and he's not a fanatic, and he's actually working undercover for the government.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, not just the government, Jim. He was also in the mafia.
Carlos Marcello.
Yeah, Matrix there in New Orleans. You know, in a way that I don't think. I mean, you know, all the different associations of Lee that are revealed in this book are very, very important in understanding the entire picture of who Lee Oswald was.
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
This is the whitewash series.
Yeah.
Another photographic whitewash, of course, in the center bottom has in its last few pages his work on Lee in the Doorway, where he makes it very clear that he believes there's funny business here in the attempts to deny that that was Lee Oswald.
He only had 9 points back in the day?
Yeah, on the shirt, on the shirt.
Now we've got 59?
Yeah.
Something like that.
No. Richard Hook has done more than 100 something points of.
Wow. I didn't know it was that many.
Yeah.
I've never read the whitewash books, but I've always admired Harold Weisberg. I've heard him on.
But you know, he was adamantly opposed to the idea that the film had been altered.
I know, and that was a very, very crucial mistake. And he tended to be what he called factual and analytic. Okay, and that was very. I think that was one of the weak points of his work. You know, don't misunderstand me. I think
No.
You know, because he's the one that carried out all these litigations against the government to, you know,
everyone has strengths and weaknesses.
That's right, to bring out all these documents that would have never seen the light of day. You know.
Yeah, documents that we pull up on the internet at will. He had to subpoena, pay money to go to court. Took sometimes 2 years to get some of these documents.
For decades. Some of these cases went decades where he had to sue for Freedom of Information Act. Okay.
Yeah, we just pull them up like it's nothing.
And Jim Lazar was his attorney in most of these cases. And, you know, Harold, you know, again, this is JFK 101, okay, along with the accessories after the fact. And he completely demolishes, you know, the one report. Again, these were self-published until, I believe, Whitewash 2, but Whitewash 1 was completely self-published, you know, and he lived a very simple life, you know, while he was publishing these books, because he writes about how it was tough to make ends meet, you know, while trying to, you know, be in the publishing and writing business at the same time, with nobody ever in the media wanting to even touch his work, you know, and it says a lot.
Yeah. And there's the other one. I think me and Lee and Dr. Mary's Monkey could be in the same binder.
Well, Ed Haslam did a brilliant job with this. So thorough, so meticulous. I admire this book immensely. It's very, very good and creates the framework within which you can appreciate what Judith has written about her life with Lee.
That's what I was going to say. These are completely independent works who coincide in a way that mesh together. And it's very hard to have something like that happen, Jim, as far as I'm concerned, where you have two different authors independently of each other bring out a lot of these of what happened in New Orleans at the time, you know, and to coincide with each other. I think it's very, very important.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, we're on to Dr. Fetcher's PowerPoint, and so you want to go ahead, Doc?
Go for it, Gary.
Okay, first book on Dr. Fetcher's top 10.
Remember, these are in chronological order, but I believe when I got serious about JFK, I learned more from David Lifton's Best Evidence than any other single source. And in my opinion, he inaugurated the scientific study of the death of JFK.
Yeah, I remember, I don't own the book. I had to go to the library and check it out because back in the early 90s, my means were too meager to buy the book. I suppose now it's pretty cheap, but
I regard my own books as sequels to Best Evidence.
Yeah, Best Evidence is really a masterpiece. A must-have book. You can't be in this business of talking about the JFK assassination without having read this book.
He was certainly the first to talk about the possibility of alteration of the body and of the film having been revised.
Yeah, he pieced all that together back in, what, 76?
Yeah, the book, I think, first appeared in 1980.
Yeah, he started working on it. He worked on it for years and years before it hit the light.
Right, this book took about 12 years to write.
Yeah. And now, having said that, sometimes when you meet your heroes in real life, they're somewhat of a disappointment.
I know, it's strange. Like he can't accept 9/11. He's convinced that it was 19 Islamic terrorists, even if a half a dozen of them turned up alive and well the following day. And it's very, very strange. I mean, things I just don't understand about David Lifton.
Can only handle one conspiracy. That's it. Nothing else.
Yeah, he somehow thinks that by doing 9/11, you're going to take away from JFK work.
And of course, he's repudiated Judith Ferry Baker. I mean.
Well, this book started, the whole concept of this book started with the one memo, the one document that he found, which was the Seibert and O'Neill report, the FBI report about surgery to the head, you know.
Right. Commander Humes himself raised that, no doubt out of consciousness of guilt, since we now know he had taken a cranial saw to the skull of JFK and greatly enlarged the wound. So he was trying, I think, to, you know, palm it off to having been done before the body arrived at Bethesda.
Yeah, and all the ramifications of this book come from that memo.
Yeah, and here's my second, The Plot That Killed Kennedy, Crossfire by Jim Marrs, which we've discussed in some detail already.
Yeah, a lot of them started to cross over after we got down the list a little bit.
Again, this is just an essential book. You got to have Crossfire.
Yeah.
Just got to have it.
I cannot express sufficient admiration for Noel Twyman's genius in putting together this book, because he really did the most astounding job of analyzing the combination of elements that it would take to make the assassination succeed, involving Lyndon Johnson, J. Edgar Hoover, the Joint Chiefs, the CIA, and the Secret Service. He diagnoses this in the early chapters, and it's completely brilliant, and it's withstood the test of time.
Yeah.
He also has, of course, a lot of good stuff on the film itself, including experiments he conducted about Greer's head turn, discovering them to be twice as fast as humanly possible, and wonderful chapters about the individuals and groups that appeared to have been involved.
And look at the price of this now, used hardcover from $89.89. So it just gives you an idea of how valuable this book is. Nobody wants to part with it.
Got a new one for $300.
There you go.
And two collectible, which probably means they're signed, for $269.
There you go.
Yeah.
Very good.
I'm beginning to blush. There's a couple of books that y'all keep saying, you're not a researcher if you hadn't read it. And I haven't read Bloody Treason, so I better get after it.
Oh, Gary, yeah, that's one you don't want to miss.
All right.
This book actually shattered the cover up. I've already alluded to it before. Josiah Thompson went out of his way to try to trash it. I mean, it was revealing to me that Josiah took this strong stance against a book that actually was probably the single most important in shattering the case. I mean, demonstrating conclusively that the government had been complicit by altering the x-rays, by substituting another brain. And of course, there's a tremendous amount in there about the alteration of the film, which would be substantially enhanced and refined in subsequent works.
Yes, the great supporter film rules.
And I've spent hours and hours on that Assassination Science website.
Oh, did you? Wonderful.
Oh, yeah. I spent a lot of time.
My own original website. You know, John Costello and I, of course, co-edit the assassinationresearch.com, where his essay about what happened on Elm Street, the eyewitnesses speak, is simply sensational.
And of course, we all know that Jefferson Morley put up on his website, remember, about assassination science.
Yeah. The worst JFK website was assassinationscience.com, Don. What kind of taste do you have? What do you know? Jefferson Morley.
Yeah.
Spookfest. Spookfest.
How embarrassing.
There you go.
Yep.
And let's not forget, over here on the cover is Raphael Cruz.
That's right. That with Antonio Veciana.
Yeah, that's the Cisco photograph.
You pointed to Antonio, but Raphael's right behind.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, this is Raphael. And
that's Raphael and Antonio. You got it.
All right.
Yeah. Before I ever sent Jim even an email, I had been on that website.
Yeah, I did a lot of moon landing research on Assassination Science website.
Probably 2008.
You know, we haven't talked about this. I think Don raised a question that implied it, but Gary Aguilar had an essay here where he was arguing for the continuity of the description of the wound from Parkland. You know, fist-sized blowout through Bethesda. He ignores the fact that, in the end, of course, the autopsy report has this massive missing back of the side of the head. But the fascinating part is Josiah Thompson, in his eagerness to trash everyone else and to glorify Aguilar, said his essay was the only one that was respectable in the book, which was, of course, absurd on its face, but which contradicted his contention that the Zapruder film is authentic, because you cannot see that wound in all the early frames where it's been blacked out. So ironically, in endorsing Aguilar's book, he was contradicting his own position on the authenticity of the film.
Yeah, just another one. Just another disappointment after another, one after the other. So,
and of course, we've talked about
awesome book.
We've talked about hoax, yeah. David Lifton put me on the spot coming in to start the conference by insisting that I should give him a share of the royalties. It was a form of extortion. I've never experienced anything like that before in my life.
He's been known for that.
Well, you get on an email chain with Dave Lifton, and you'll whatever respect you had for him kind of dwindles in a hurry.
It's very embarrassing. Jack, of course, did wonderful work. He was a pioneer in this field. Costella's essay is simply sensational, totally brilliant. Lifton himself has a very good essay, oddly enough, called Pig on a Leash. And when we had listen to this, David Mamet wanted to option this to make a movie about it. But he had a requirement that you had to sign a release that all these filmmakers require, that even if, what he publishes isn't in agreement with what you said, in other words, even if you think part of what he said was false, you can't contest it, because otherwise they can't go through the process of making the whole movie and then finding there's some contest about it. I'll call you when I'm off the air, Joe.
Yeah.
And in fact, I don't think Lifton would have agreed anyway, because Lifton thought his own work was deserving of having a film made about it all by itself. Here, of course, Doug Horn, his 5 volumes, which substantiate, round out many of the details about the film being taken to the National Photographic Interpretation Center on Saturday, the original 8mm already split film developed in Dallas, where one crew was working and they had to have a shop owner open his store to buy an 8mm projector so they could view it. And then on Sunday, the revised film was brought there, a 16mm unsplit film developed in Rochester, where it had been revised at Hawkeye Works, a secret CIA lab, by an agent who identified himself as William Smith, and the substitution was made. Doug Horn just poured his heart and soul into these 5 volumes. It's really simply overwhelming.
I mean, and okay, one thing I'll give Black Op Radio props for is they've had Doug on a number of times for some very long interviews, and
he's fallen out of favor though, because he's talking about the Zapruder film.
Yep. But there are some 2-hour interviews, and if you get a chance to listen to a 2-hour Doug Horn interview,
you're going to learn something.
You're going to learn something. Yep, absolutely. You will learn something.
They've even sicked Seamus Coogan on Doug Horn.
That's disgusting.
Yeah.
Well, that's a badge of honor, though. I mean, if that piece of shit Seamus Coogan's coming after you, you must be doing something right.
You must be doing something right.
Yep.
All right, this one came up already. It was our first book.
We discussed JFK and the Unspeakable. As I mentioned, these are in chronological order. Mm-hmm. I'm glad we've been talking about so many of the earlier books by, for example, Sylvia Marr and Harold Weisberg and others, because they are so terribly important. Gary Shaw, Cover Up, tremendous book.
They're the precursors.
Right.
We forgot about this one.
See, I regard this as a litmus test. You can tell whether someone's a serious researcher or a covert op by the reaction to this book. And in part, it's so powerful because it reveals the methods of how the CIA sets up hits in order to play innocent witnesses into being on the scene and not really appreciate the situation they're observing, where they later testify with utter sincerity about what they observed, but it was all set up by the agency. This is a brilliant book, and I absolutely mean it, that if somebody criticizes Mary's Mosaic, you can discount them as a serious researcher and recognize that they're either incompetent at research or working for the other side.
Well, 9 out of 10, you know that story.
Well, the thing about Peter is that he was inside. He knew his father was CIA, and his father was involved in the murder of Mary Meyer. And I just wanted to mention real quick, my father, Mercedes, is so he's read this book so many times that he had my sister, who lived in the Washington area, go down there and actually take photographs and send them back to him because he wanted to see how the whole layout was in comparison, how it's presented in the book, So I thought that
we went through that one, Gary.
Yeah. So, Don, since we're out of time, there's any books that you didn't get to bring up?
You left one out. You left out my last book.
We did?
Yep. Go back. I thought there
was.
was something wrong with ending where you did. That's because it was number 10, but you see, I had an introductory slide, so you had to get to 11, Gary. You had to get to 11. There we go.
Oh, yes,
there we go.
You missed.
Phil Nelson's LBJ, the mastermind of the JFK assassination. I regard this as a masterpiece, one of the most important books ever done. You cannot read this book and fail to appreciate that LBJ had all these venal qualities. He was ruthless, utterly ambitious. He would not allow anyone to stand in his way. And why, when I had a conversation with Madeline Brown during the lunch together, and she explained to me she never understood what John Connolly meant when he was asked to describe LBJ and said it would take every adjective in the dictionary. I explained to her that was because he had so many strengths, both for good and for evil, so that each of the positive attributes he had was, as it were, contradicted by an equally strong negative attribute. And then she understood the man she'd fallen in love with in 1948 and born a child, Stephen, in 1950.
That's right. And the Colossus, the sequel to this, is also.
Boy, that's on your bookshelf. I see it.
And boy, has Phil taken a beating for coming out with this.
I know. I was going to say it.
But there's a whole host of books, and I go through them. I've gone through them before,
But you know something, Don? All those people that criticize Phil will not come out and debate him one-on-one anywhere, okay? That's what's so amazing about this.
I sent you an email, Gary.
All right.
Top 10.
We'll go get it. Yeah. Oh, hang on.
We can just go down that real quick. Most of the books we've already talked about. In fact, I actually did 8 books and 2 DVDs because I figured we'd talk about all the books. And there was a couple of DVDs I wanted to include.
Well, one of them could well have been Executive Action because that was a brilliant piece. Yeah. And it was attended by a newspaper type that gave a layout of all the factual evidence that substantiated it. So that was definitely worthwhile if we were to include DVDs. Okay, let's see. This is the list. Final Judgment, JFK, Fletcher, Prouty, Crossfile, Trailers, Best Evidence, Assassinate, Murder, JFK, Unspeakable, Men Who Killed Kennedy. Okay, good, sure. Nigel Turner's series and JFK, the movie, to which I then add Executive Action as well, should be on that list. But those are excellent choices, Don. Excellent.
Yeah, for me, we didn't talk about it a ton, was one of the most formative books in my life was JFK, the CIA, Vietnam, and the Plot to Assassinate John F. Kennedy by L. Fletcher Prouty.
Yes.
That was, to me, that's another book that just shapes your worldview. It's like, okay, wait a minute. That's how this thing really works. This is how they do this.
And by way of conclusion, before the last grain of sand passes through the hourglass, let us give credit to Leno Sanik preserving the memory of L. Fletcher Prouty.
Well, and that's why I started listening to Black Op Radio, is because of Prouty, and I started scouring the internet. Well, who's talking about Prouty? This guy's phenomenal. And the only place you could go was Black Op. And so
we have to give credit where it's due. So don't forget, there are brand new books, and the new JFK book will be out very, very soon. And we hope you go to Patriot Radio Books or Moon Rock Books because you can purchase them there. All right, gentlemen, it's been a fun one. We'll see you next week. This has been JFK Show number 144.